Hello. All right. Thanks very much for having us. Thanks for inviting us, Russell. Much appreciated. So we are going to just give you a sort of quick spin through really where we've got to today and the sort of process and the journey of taking an idea from sort of concept through to sort of building it and the pitfalls and some of the challenges that have come with that. So I always like to start with my why. This, I think, would probably go down as child abuse these days, and some of the things my mum dressed me up in. This, and I think you can probably tell, I was always destined for a career in sport with legs like that. So that is not malnutrition, that's just my actual legs. Yeah, I've always played a lot of sport, and I think I've had huge value out of sport in my life. I played badminton internationally, I was a Scottish junior champion up to about 17. And unlike Mark with rugby, I realised that girls weren't impressed by it and there's no money in it. So I kind of quickly lost interest. I played sort of golf, football, tennis, quite a lot of things competitively at varying levels. And I've always just really enjoyed sport. So I moved in, my wife moved into, up from Southampton about 9 years ago, and I moved into Glasgow. I lost all my regular games at five-a-side, the guy I played squash with, my badminton club, and I realised, there was always people texting me, phoning me, looking for me to turn up and playing games. I was always looking for games, but they're always at the wrong time. I just realised the whole thing was completely inefficient, that, players are always looking for games, games are always looking for players. The whole system didn't work. People didn't know how to find each other, and it just seemed like a really obvious problem to try and solve. So before we really started doing anything, I thought it'd be wise to go out and sort of speak to some people in the market and sort of see that this was a real problem. And I think that there's sort of three key things that came back for us. So I think that probably the first one was the organisers. Anybody I think that's ever run a game knows the problem. Every week struggling to find people to turn up. If you move to a new area, if you're looking to get into a new sport, how do you find that? And it's easy enough if you're looking for kind of real organised clubs, but actually casual stuff, which is how most people like to play, people don't really know how to find it. And then there was another couple of key statistics. I'm pretty outgoing and feel happy to go and meet new people, but I didn't know if that was the case for most people. So actually 88% of people we polled happy to play sports with people they didn't know. So on the basis that we had a real problem there, that there was a market for it, I thought, right, let's just go build an app. Which in retrospect is fucking idiotic, but it was, we basically put together an idea of what the product should look like, and I thought, well, how much is this going to cost? I just need somebody to put an app together for me. Here we are 5 years later, and it's like, my God, the amount that I didn't know was absolutely staggering. So initially, we spoke to a load of sort of development houses across kind of Glasgow, Edinburgh, pitched the idea to them. Nobody was interested in doing it. Everybody was just, knocking out brochure apps for big corporates. So nobody was interested in it. We decided to take it. We found a product called Odesk, which is now Upwork, I think. It's just a marketplace for developers. So we basically put the proposition on there. We get a load of people come back to us. We outsourced it to Ukraine, and I think the initial app cost us like $4,000 or something like that. So it was, very much an MVP. This is what it looked like, and the famous saying, I think this was in Lean Startup: if you're not ashamed of your MVP, you've waited too long to launch it. Now, I actually, when this went out, thought it looked awesome. And that's not a joke. I was like, I'm not ashamed of my MVP, that's amazing. But yeah, I mean, looking back now, it's a pile of shit, but it served a purpose, So what we were able to do with that was basically get a little bit of sort of coverage. Quite a lot of people liked the idea. We managed to get 3,000 or 4,000 downloads just off the back of some STV coverage, and that let us sort of take on and say, look, there's a demand for this. And I think that was the point where, we realised that the main struggle we were having was in the development side of things, that the product was taking too long, it just wasn't good enough, it wasn't stable enough, and that we needed to bring that in-house. And I think we get approached quite a lot about people saying, I want to build an app, and I'd be very, very reticent to do anything at any level unless you have people in-house to do it. Because we had an absolute nightmare outsourcing, and it's not going to be the case for everybody, but certainly for us it was just a real money pit. And I think once the relationship breaks down and you don't trust your developers, and you don't really have any real way to challenge them, then it's very, very stressful and very time consuming and very expensive. So at this point I joined an accelerator program called Entrepreneurial Spark. They introduced me to a number of developers in the community. I went and met them, and this is the point I'll hand you over to Mr. Lee McLaughlin, the brains of the operation. Oh, aye, sorry.
So I met Jim kind of after and Whaley was still in the middle of this experience of outsourcing to Ukraine, and I was effectively mediator, is probably for a better word. So we'd both had an experience in eSpark in Glasgow, and that was the introduction. And when I first got introduced, Jim said, I'm in a real trouble. The app's nearly there. Look, it looks amazing. If we can just fix these 3 bugs, we can launch this app and it'll be amazing. Cool, let me talk. I'll go on a few calls, went on some Skype calls, mediating these last 3 bugs that needed to be done, and then, we'd be off to the show. And it was kind of favour.
And we're all going to be billionaires.
Yeah. It was kind of, at this point, it was like, I'm just doing you a favour. You're another tech company in the ecosystem. I'm sure I can solve this for you if it's only those 3 bugs. Which obviously it wasn't. So I think maybe a month after that, we started getting right into the product and realising that it was effectively built on some PHP script for a back-end server, and they had an iOS app that worked maybe 95% of the time. And it's probably a fair description. Yeah. So I was trying to get these bugs done, try to get it released into the App Store, and then obviously had the horrible discussion. I don't know if anybody's ever had the discussion to tell someone that they've just perhaps spent a year and a half or a year getting an app built and they thought it was just about to be launched, and you said, this is effectively a brochure app and we are going to have to destroy it because there's nothing to build on top of here in terms of taking a product to scale. And basically, let's go back to the start and work out what it is we're trying to build, who we're trying to build it for. And this is probably an example of some early drawings, but we literally, you've always got that choice, haven't you? I know it's always the developer's dream where you say, well, we definitely need to go greenfield. Of course, that's like the developer always says, I can't work with the code that's there, but truly that was the situation we were in. And we decided to go back and literally have meeting after meeting and whiteboard session after whiteboard session to fundamentally go back to what we try to build, what problem we try to solve, sports participation, how do we get that guy to talk to that guy. And I think we might have had about 2 weeks of whiteboard sessions. These are actual pictures of stuff that I draw, and I'm not allowed near whiteboards anymore because, as you can see, they're just illegible. In fact, I think this probably wasn't something that I drew because you can tell kind of that it's screens, but this definitely is.
I don't know if anybody watch Silicon Valley? No. Like that. That looks like the Gavin. Put that one back. Put it back up. No. This is our typical daily interaction. Me asking me to do stuff and him just saying no.
Can
we do this? No.
Right. So.
No.
So I'm walking that fine line of saying we need to rebuild. Let's go back to the start, and that's when we kind of started looking at validating using the current product, getting it out. Internally, we were calling it the brochure app because we knew we could get people to download it. We knew we'd be starting again at some point very soon, but we used it as the foundation for proving a couple of little tests that there was demand, as Jim said. This is meant to represent me as coming in as the product owner and sitting somewhere between what should users have to meet this problem statement? And what
Lee's amazing at Photoshop, by the way, just he's levitating.
It's as good as my drawing on whiteboards. And Jim's kind of demand for having a very strong vision. And I said that we went back to the whiteboard to start again. But it was almost, the problem was we had an app that was live in the App Store, and that was probably one of my hardest challenges initially, was trying to completely say, we need to not let that guide us too much in terms of what we're about to redevelop right now. And I always find, if there's other product managers or product owners in here, that we are often kind of doing the balancing act between external demand, user demand. Like Jim is always looking outward from the business, whereas I'm always looking at what feature we're developing and whether it's going to change a metric for our users.
And I think, like Mark said earlier, there's a lot of occasions where you're speaking to, a potential customer, and they're like, oh, if I could just do this. And you're like, yeah, I'll do that, no problem. And I instantly know I'm going to get the shit kicked out of me when I go back from Lee. He'll be like, dude, stop promising people stuff. So now, I've kind of learned that lesson quite a few times where generally I say, I think that would be okay. I don't think that would be too hard. But I tend not to promise stuff on tight sort of deadlines unless I know that we can actually deliver it. So
Liar.
I'm learning.
Liar. You promise stuff all the time. No, you have got a lot better. So I guess we were at the situation where it was rebuild it and they might come. I guess if we were more focused at this point, the weird thing about this was you'd think we just about raised money, right? So we raised money through seeders. You think you've got the chance to restart, but you've also got someone who's just spent a long time building the first version of the product. So there's not really that time to sit and mull over and get it right. You can go back to the drawing board and get the user experience correct, but there's still a persistent demand to get the version out because we'd just waited, a year and a half to get one out. So I think we did our first, did we close at the end of August? And
that's September.
End of September, and we relaunched in December.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
and raising money on crowdfunding has its advantages, but there is also quite a lot of pressure that comes with that when you've taken, a lot of money and investment from friends and family. And we were quite clear and quite transparent, very transparent about where we were and the risks involved in investing in an early stage startup. And we sort of put it out there and said, look, if you want to invest, here's where to do it, here's the risks, here's the potential upside. You've got to be prepared for the fact you get nothing back. And if you're cool with that, then that's fine. Because taking money off friends and family, I certainly don't want to sour any relationships. And I think as long as they were comfortable with the risk and the reward, then that was fine. But I had to make it very, very clear the nature of investing in an early stage startup, and I think that's really important if you're at the kind of friends and family investment stage that everybody knows where they're at. Sorry, just to jump in on it. No. But we raised like 150 grand in seeders in like 3 days. We had some money already committed, but it can be done. But I think it's really important that everybody's aware of the risks.
If I was to think back to when we were rebuilding again and said, great, we started from scratch, but we had this app that was in the App Store, which meant we had all of Jim's feature sets that he'd been worrying about for however long before he got it developed. So we still had this kind of chain around our neck of, yes, let's rebuild and get it out and do it properly and do it in a kind of iterative approach, I think Mark said earlier. But we also had okay, Jim, what features aren't important? And these were all the features that Jim had lived with for a year. So we ended up still delivering quite a packed, full first version of the app. So I would have, if I had my time again, I might have been more iterative for that. And
how long have we been? Are we taking ages? Right, cool.
So this is the version, or maybe.
So these are the three sort of core functions of what we do. So we can.
finding players, obviously in your local area. We are called Find a Player, it is our main function. So finding someone to play in your fives game if someone's dropped out, or finding someone to play squash with. I think I was talking to someone earlier who's looking for that. We've got finding events in your local area, so if you are a player and you're trying to find a fives game to join, and so hopefully someone will intersect who needs a fives player, or you request to join, you might get pulled in next week.
Yeah, just to jump in on that, one of the sort of cool things about the app is that it's all map based. So if you move to a new area, or you're away, down in London for work or whatever, you can search on specific things, but you can also just browse the map and see sort of anything that's on round about you, like tonight. So it's quite good as an experience if you're like, right, I've just moved to a new area, I want to find some new sports, I don't know what I want to do, I just want to find something new. Then you can just sort of browse and see like sort of interesting stuff going on round about you.
Yeah, and the organisation section, which is meant to be save organisers' time, and Jim uses eat your own dog food, I guess, is one of the old tripes and kind of product development, and Jim uses this every week. You've kind of validate a lot of our new features and organisation.
I don't know if anybody sort of has run. Can anybody stick a hand up if you've ever run a regular sort of weekly game of sport? Right. Okay, quite a few hands, right, good. So you'll probably know, I know there's some admin tools out there, but genuinely, we pulled, can you jump on to the next one? We pulled about 100 organisers, and they told us the average time they spend on a weekly basis is between 2 and 3 hours, which I think is pretty high personally, but I know, having done it before we developed this, that it's a massive pain in the arse. People pulling out last minute, people deciding whether they're in or out on a kind of daily basis, then actually trying to find extra people to jump into your game. So literally, genuinely, this takes me under 5 minutes now, so it's a massive time saving on a weekly basis. There's like 5 minutes to set it up, and then each week it just automatically recreates. You send out your invites, it tracks the numbers. If you need extra people, they're already there on your bench, and it just simplifies the whole thing. We've also got like group chat in there as well, and there's lots of other features for organisers that we're kind of bringing in when I can convince Lee. So yeah.
Yes, so I guess this is a taster of our product roadmap, and the reason it's all got queues and no actual timeframes is because we're raising money, and you never put a date on the product roadmap when you're raising money because you need to update it all the time, as I'm sure you might know.
We have already sort of done quite a few of those Q1s.
Yeah. Although I'm saying we raised that 150, we've raised some money since, we've been developing the product for 18 months, and we can still fill a room full of development tasks that we need to do in terms of roadmap in the future. But I think what we done was we built a product that we knew was functional and worked, and a bit like Mark, we skipped over some of those onboarding as a product feature tasks, and that's really what we're going back to, is how do we make marketing as a product feature, as opposed to what we were probably doing when we first launched was, hey, look at all these nice set of features, hey marketing, go and get people to use the feature. That's really what all our focus has been in the last kind of 6 months.
And I think one of the biggest challenges for me is, as Lee just said, we're raising money at the moment. All the investors we speak to want to know growth. They're like, right, what are you growing like? And we're saying, look, we aren't at the moment because we had to get the product right before we scaled it. With this type of product where, it's very much sort of B2C, I'll come on to that in a second. If we put this out and it's not right and it starts falling over when people are trying to run their games with it every week, we're going to get absolutely slaughtered in the App Store, and we could be dead in the water before we start. So it was really important for us that we get the product right before we started putting it out there, and that's kind of where we're at now, that we really want to start scaling quickly, and we believe the product's now right to do that. So yeah, this is kind of next challenge, and I think for a company like ours, multi-sided marketplace, where we need the players to run the games, and we need the games to bring the players. How do you serve both sides of the market? And we've also got clubs and teams there as well. So for us, it's just really been about looking at what the drivers are for each sort of constituent part. For organisers, you know, what are they looking for? Like free stuff. Organisers want like strips, they want like training tops, they want bibs, stuff that, you know, we can say, right, okay, our product does this, but we'll incentivise you this way. And there's been things that we've done where there's been quite a really like massive knock-on effect that was sometimes unintended. When we started doing sort of club sponsorship, we saw a massive sort of uplift in number of games that were just appearing on the platform, and we weren't trying to sell them that as a product. They just saw that they could use that as a tool to recruit players. So it's really, from that side of things, it's always just been looking at how can we deliver benefits and how can we serve each side of the market well, and then just bring them to the table and really kind of incentivise them with the features once we've sort of got them through the door. And that's something that, you know, we're planning to get a lot better at very quickly. That me. And then this is just some of us bigging ourselves up. So sort of traction, and I think the biggest one, we've won quite a few awards. The biggest one was last year. We won Best App at the Sports Technology Awards, and nobody's ever heard of the Sports Technology Awards, but that's why I have to put up who we beat, because everybody's like, who gives a shit about the Sports Technology Awards? But we beat Arsenal, British Rowing, the New York Marathon and the German FA to win that. And genuinely, you know, we were just delighted to be in the shortlist with that kind of category of company and organisation. So when they read out we were the winners, everybody was like, who's find a player? So that was amazing. Most recently, Yahoo Sports Tech startup, with a few sort of plaudits and stuff on Sunday Times, Joe. And then in terms of sort of what we've done so far, we've had about over 100,000, I think it's over 120,000 now, games delivered in the app, and that's all user generated. So that's not stuff we're pulling out of, you know, gyms and stuff like that. That's all user generated. Cost of acquisition's down about £2 at launch. We're under about 85 pence at the moment. And our game cancellation is actually running about, I think it's like 0.1% or something. So there's hardly any games that are on there that are cancelled. So it's really, for us, it's all about now trying to make sure that when we bring users on, the experience they get is optimal. So if you come on as an organiser, we find you players and they actually turn up and play in your game, and the same from the other perspective. So if you come on as just somebody looking to find stuff to do, actually you can find what you're looking for, and the people running that will respond and come back to you. So yeah, that's kind of where we're at. I hope that's been interesting and helpful, maybe, I don't know. But thanks very much for having us. That's pretty much us done, so cheers.